So let's start with the inventory management. I understand that it's a config map. And as a config map, it could be stored in Git. But what I don't understand is we generate the config map at first, and we apply it to the cluster. That's fine. But what happens if I want to take ownership of that config map? Can I add it simply to the repository, or will it conflict if I do so?
What does it mean to take ownership of this config map?
I mean, I want to have the config map in my repo, in my GitOps repository.
So in your GitOps repository, if you are, I just need more context to better explain. So okay. The situation, we have the agent, we have the GitOps repository without the inventory template in the repository. It all works. It applies the manifests. It creates the inventory object in the cluster using the agent ID plus project ID. And the question is, how do I, as a user, take this thing and put it into my GitOps repository? Yes. Which is a good thing to do, actually. Yes.
Yes, that's the question.
Well, you take it. So you put it into the repository, you delete all the data from it, like the data in config map, all the key value pairs, they're not needed, right? It's just the template, the rest of it. You also don't need potentially any annotations. Only one label is needed, like cli-utils inventory, something. I don't remember how it's called, but this label, and that's it. Like everything else, data, it's all can be deleted. Then you commit it with your manifests into the repository, and that's how you adopt it, basically adopt the existing object.
And in this case, the already deployed resources. So like it's like I have a config map with all the annotations, with everything, with the template filled out in my cluster. And then I create a much smaller version of that without annotations, without anything, and I add it to my repo. So it's like, won't these conflict? Won't there be, because my empty config map will try to override the config map that already exists?
No, it's not. This is not how it works. So let me explain. So we read all the files from the, not all, but the matching files from the repository, the GitOps manifest repository. We look for a config map with a label, specific label. That's how we locate the inventory template, inventory object template in those files that you have, in your objects that you have. And we ensure that there is only one, well, 0 or 1. If there is 0, we create the default one. And if there is 1, then we use this as a template. We give it to cli-utils. It populates it with data about the other objects we also read. Then it looks up the config map with the same label and name and namespace in the cluster. It reads it. It calculates the diff and performs pruning after it applies everything.
Okay, so yeah, I see. So what is in my Git repo will be kind of out of sync anyway, because we do not commit back to the Git repo, and it's generated every time when this syncing happens. Okay.
Yes, you're not supposed to commit this data. The whole point is to compare your objects with information about the objects in the inventory object in the cluster.
Okay.
The data, you don't need to store it in this config map or in the repository, because you have the same data as objects.
As objects in the repo, and that's what generates the content. Okay, I got it. Thank you. Great. Okay, then this is fine. I understand now perfectly. The next question is then really that how to adopt, how to how to start using the GitLab Kubernetes agent, what changes might be needed in configuration, like the inventory policy management. If I already have a cluster that's set up, I have my Kubernetes manifests in my computer. It could be in Git as well. The only thing is that those were not applied using the engine, were applied in some other way. Then how do I get started?
So starting from scratch in terms of the agent, but you already have some manifests in the repository and potentially in some
and the
repository.
Same one in the cluster. So the cluster is in sync with my repository.
Yep.
It's the same thing. And yeah.
Well, deploy the agent, configure it to work with this repository. You can create the inventory template before you point the agent at the repository, or commit it there so that it picks it up, or you can let it just create one in the cluster and take it and put it into the repository. Okay,
so we don't have to change this what's the name? Come on.
The onboarding flow,
the inventory policy to adopt if not in inventory or something like that.
Okay, I forgot about this. Yes, yes, it will. You will need to change that once to make it adopt those objects. Yes, sorry, I forgot about that.
And then it works like, okay, then in the first run, if I don't change, it will just conflict and the deployment will fail.
Yeah, it will immediately say, hey, there's an object which doesn't have the label with the value that matches the value on the inventory object. Exactly. And so I like give up. I stop.
Yeah. Then the user changes the agent configuration to adopt if not in inventory. And then it works. It adopts, and then the user can change it back, the inventory policy, to something more restrictive. Okay. What happens if it was deployed, for example, with KPT that uses an inventory policy?
So
there is an inventory policy, just that it's not from the agent. That's the setup.
So you can manage the same objects using both tools as long as you are using the same inventory object template. So you will take this template from KPT or from the cluster. It will be on the cluster, right? KPT put
so it's even easier to get the whole adoption because I just have to, because I already have the inventory. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay. And
so then, another thing, sorry, one more thing. I think it also, okay, maybe that's for, okay. So there is a thing called field owner. So when you apply from a different tool, you will have, it acts as a different owner. So the agent acts as agent K owner. So in the field, how is it called? Field owners or something, there's a field in the metadata field of each object that stores information about the ownership of which field. And it will not match, and that means server-side apply, which we use now. We will say, hey, there is a conflict which I can't resolve. So there is an option to force conflicts, and that's what we will need to do because both KPT and the agent wants to manage the same fields if you want to manage the same objects, and they will conflict on each apply. Like they will try to take ownership, and there can only be one owner of a particular field. If you manage one part of the object with KPT and another part with the agent, that will actually be fine. But that probably is not the case. So the user will need to decide what they want to have as the owner, and then use the force ownership or something. There is an option which I exposed to take over if that's what they want.
Okay. I think this is enough to be documented in the adoption aspect. Okay, and the final question is, I think you already answered that in one of your comments, but do I have to change anything in my configuration if I use the agent already with GitOps engine, and then I want to use it with the next version?
Well, we
can remove the exclusions and inclusions.
Yeah, yes. Resource inclusions, resource exclusions, they will have to be removed, and otherwise
they will have to be removed.
Yes.
Okay, so we would fail because the config schema won't match. Okay. But that's
yeah. Maybe that was a bad. I didn't think about this. Well, it will say there is no such field, like remove it. It will work.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That was the documentation part. I will have to leave soon, and I think that our next topic is much bigger and it's more of a discussion. That I just wanted to share what I see right now. And actually I'm creating a proposal for the product organization to think around these terms and to organize ourselves around these terms. So even perhaps with some new product categories and teams. Let's discuss this next week, if you don't mind.
Okay, we can also discuss it this week, but another day, if like tomorrow or Thursday, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just checking out your calendar as well. Tomorrow actually might work. Yeah, tomorrow could work.
We don't
same time.
Yeah, works for me. We don't need to wait. I think it's kind of, it needs to be discussed, and otherwise we are just like wasting time basically.
Sure. Good idea. Okay, I've sent you an invite.
Cool.
For tomorrow, and that's good idea. Okay, cool. Then let's discuss it tomorrow. Any other Russian lessons?
Well, пока or до свидания.
Пока, I remember that. Yeah.
Goodbye, до свидания.
Yeah. No, I remembered пока for today for us. So when I yeah, I already forgot how to say hello. What was that? I don't remember.
Привет.
Привет. Yeah. I think it's very similar in Polish as well, or
don't say this to, I don't know, border control or something.
Of course, yeah, I understand. This is really
it's yeah.
I know that in Hungary as well, it's like it's very different how the informal expressions are compared to English. Like in English, you say hello to everyone. In Hungarian, you wouldn't say szia to everyone, even though that's the most informal. So that's probably the Privyet one. Yeah, cool. Okay, I think for the customs, I should say Dobry dzień or something like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
pretty neutral. Okay, so thanks for the call. See you tomorrow as well.
Okay, and talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, пока.
Bye-bye.